Good Tuesday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center with this live update, taking a look at the current Doppler radar imagery here as we're looking toward the northern Gulf Coast. You can see we have a Hurricane Sally, and it's moving closer here toward areas like Mobile, Pensacola as well. And it's a Category 1 storm right now, but we just have to continue to monitor it, continue to watch it to see exactly what it does before it actually makes landfall, because we have some pretty strong winds that have been indicated here by some different sensors, and we might strengthen still a little bit as it does get closer. But that's not the big story, the wind threat. We're talking more about that heavy rain threat, that flash flooding threat, and just have to really pay attention because we could have some big time issues as we're looking ahead here in toward the period with some very, very dangerous conditions. In fact, already seeing some of that taking place here. Some flash flood warnings already on the board as we're looking here toward parts of the western Florida Panhandle, just west of our viewing area, in fact. So I'll take off some of our wind arrows and you'll be able to see what's happening with some of these flash flood warnings. Also a tornado watch that's going to be updated here soon, as you saw that in the yellow color. That goes here just for the next little bit. In fact, the information has that here going to about 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central, but that'll probably be extended based on Storm Prediction Center information that I've been seeing. I haven't had an actual tornado warning here today in toward this area, but we just have to pay attention to see how things might evolve here as the threat does look to go up as we're looking ahead later in toward those evening hours. And you see just quite a few flood reports here in Walden County right now. Life-threatening flooding here at a threat. We just have to be very mindful of this there. You see all these different indications, law enforcement reporting some of this here, roads being closed. So just really got to be very careful. Got to remember to turn around, don't drown. Had some of these reports in the Bay County, Panama City area a little while ago as well. Not really seeing that at the moment, but over the last 12 hours or so, you see 7 to 8 inches of rain along the coast even. So that really causes issues, and even flooding further inland as well as we get toward parts of Holmes, Walton, Washington, as well under another flash flood warning, the life-threatening flash flooding. We just have to continue to watch for as we look out toward the west as well. You see Pensacola here, a flash flood warning. They're not calling this life-threatening yet, but I'm sure that'll probably change here as we look ahead later in toward the evening hours. And the Mobile area, flash flood warning there too. I know Mobile, Baldwin, and also getting into toward other areas there, getting into where it looks like the Florida Panhandle, talking about Escambia County having the greatest threat here. So people just got to stay tuned, got to check in for the latest information. As you see this eye here, pretty well defined on radar, not as well defined on satellite, but it's been trying to maybe poke out here a little bit on some of this imagery. You can kind of make it out here, but it's not too well defined, and that's some good news at least. Maybe not getting this act together too much, but still, that's not the biggest deal with this. The wind potential, the structure, is more about that rain potential, that copious amount of moisture that's going to move into the picture here. We just have to be very cognizant of it, and we have to just remember, again, to turn around, don't drown, even in the word of Florida Big Bend here, folks. We have a flash flood watch going into where some of these counties here as we get further over as well. We just have to pay attention and continue to track things here as the evening goes along, as we get into tomorrow, and even towards southwestern Georgia. The track shifted a little bit, and that means an increased threat here for some of that flash flooding as we look toward areas like Albany and Bainbridge as well. As you see out toward the New Orleans area, they're really getting spared. Storm surge warning in effect, but they're not really seeing much in terms of tropical conditions whatsoever. And this storm here pretty much going to be going north and then easterly to an extent here eventually. So we're going to be watching for that, and then that means New Orleans really kind of moving away here even from this. So they're getting spared again, but the eastern side of this packing a punch, feeling a lot of moisture here in the pictures you can see. And again, we have to watch for those tornadoes. As I pull up that threat here, you'll be able to see tornado parameters still off the coast, just like last night. But those are going to move on here as we look ahead toward the evening and tomorrow, looking more towards some marked counties. Again, we'll be watching to see if this tornado watch does get extended here in time. I'm sure it will. The Storm Prediction Center said as much just a little while ago. So we'll give you that as soon as it comes down. It said any moment, and you'll hear even a beeping noise, probably multiple beeping noises as that watch does come out. The latest information there from the Storm Prediction Center and the individual National Weather Service offices. So Just people talking about some high winds there, making it difficult to travel in the Mobile area. As these winds are really picking up now in toward the Mobile region. You'll be able to see here some of these indications as I put the radar back on. We're getting in that northern periphery here, not necessarily northern eye wall yet, but we're not that far away from it in some of these spots. But this is a slow mover, so it's not a situation where I'm going to go to wall here with a stream, because this is going to last for hours and hours as it gradually moves here. Last check, only moving at 2 miles an hour, so this is a very slow mover, folks. I know those maximum sustained winds down, but that pressure, that pressure here in the overall scenario, that pressure is also down, and that's indicative of a stronger storm here. So that's something you have to be cognizant of as well. As I just noticed, we had the tornado watch kind of go away in some of these areas. We'll find out what's going on there in a moment with this, but in this eye wall, you're seeing winds 90 knots there at an oil rig. So we're talking about speeds in excess there of maybe about 100 miles an hour, 104. So a little elevated, but toward Mobile here, we were talking about that 46 knots report there just a little while ago at Mobile Airport. So we're talking about 53 miles an hour. And then we have, it looks like 44 knots there, Fairhope. So that gets us to about 51. So we're going to start seeing some more power being knocked out. The Pensacola Naval Air Station, 43 knots, so 50 miles per hour. As I just saw the tornado watch kind of change on me, and we just got an update. Haven't actually come through here, hasn't came through here in the chat yet, but this is going to go now to about 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, this tornado watch. That's Central Time, so 7 a.m. Eastern. And it looks like we're still gathering information on exactly where this is going to cover, and we'll pass that along to you as soon as we get that. This might be the area, but I want to make sure before I run with it, as this could be expanded just a little bit here. We're still trying to find out exactly what's going to happen with this, but again, we're still tracking things, still monitoring the situation very carefully, and we're trying to give you those updates here as the evening does move along. So now let's go ahead and see that camera there at the stadium in Tallahassee. You'll be able to see what's happening there. And then I'll probably take you to the West Florida camera, the university out there. We'll give you the viewpoint, and you'll be able to see exactly what is taking place. So this is the stadium at FSU. You see some of that storminess around, but nothing too extreme right now. But as we take you over to the West Florida camera, as we get toward Pensacola, you see a little bit more storminess in the picture. You see more of that rain obscuring the lens, so just got to be cognizant there. We're going to be continuing to watch as we look between these different cameras here. And let's go ahead now, though, and take you over toward the First Coast, because we actually had some flooding in toward the Brunswick area today I need to touch on. Some more viewers may be watching here from the First Coast, so let's go ahead and pop this on right now. You'll be able to see not as much rain maybe right around Brunswick right now. We had quite a bit of rain earlier, leading to some flood warnings, quite a few inches of rain falling here. And that can just sometimes happen. We weren't too concerned because it wasn't a rapid water rise, so I wasn't really putting that out. But I still just got to be cognizant here, excuse me, as we continue to watch here throughout the rest of the evening hours, as we see some of this moisture here on the First Coast and southeastern Georgia as well. We're to see how things do above here. So again, I'll go ahead and move me back on the camera now as we continue to track some different things. As we continue to give you those latest updates, you see that track here going a little further south here in toward Alabama and toward Georgia. And now let's go ahead and see that official cone perspective here. You'll be able to see more of what I'm talking about as we're looking toward this. The hurricane warning continuing there now from Bay St. Louis, Mississippi to looks like Navarre, Florida still. 80 mile per hour maximum sustained winds. That movement north at about 2 miles per hour. And that minimum pressure about 979 millibars. So you see this track here maybe even going further into towards southern Alabama. And again, that kind of puts our area here more into towards some impacts. So I'll be breaking that down for you here in just a second. Tropical storm warning going all the way to Indian Pass there. So again, we're just continuing to track things very carefully with this. And as I look at our forecast model, maybe a landfall not taking place here about 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central Time. You see that eye wall there on shore, coming on shore earlier than that, but the eye there itself may be making landfall as the sunrise pretty much does take place. You see some of this heavier rain off toward the east though. And you see some of this moisture here as we get further off into toward the Florida Big Bend as well. We're going to continue to watch this here. See how some of this action does get going, because maybe some tornadic conditions could come into play. A flash flood watch including part of the Florida Big Bend. I know we had that expanded into Gadsden County here earlier, so going to continue to watch Franklin under that as well. We're 5 to 7 inches, and really maybe 5 to 7 more inches still possible, as this is pretty much staying the same from yesterday, but we're really kind of watching an increase in the rain threat here. So what I'm kind of trying to do with this is just stick things here on the screen that are pretty much the same as what we said yesterday, because still this much more rain could still come, and kind of keeping some continuity in the forecast, even if we end up getting more than what we're showing you on that information yesterday. So excessive rainfall outlook now, high risk zone, over 30 inches of rain possible in isolated spots here, folks. So historic flash flooding here coming into play. State tropical cyclone rainfall records we're talking about in Alabama. Danny in 1997, nearly 40 inches of rain. And there's a chance, hopefully it doesn't happen, but there's a chance that we could end up breaking that here with this storm, with a hurricane, of course, Sally, as it does move closer. I don't think we're going to break the Florida Georgia records. I know in Florida that record was in toward the Yankeetown area in our viewing circle. There are over 40 inches, over 45 inches of rain. And then we had Alberto as we got in toward parts of southern Georgia, just causing so much of a problem there in toward the Albany area. Nearly 30 inches. Shouldn't get toward that number either, but that was such a historic storm. You do see this marginal risk here as we're looking off toward other areas, but as we get in more focusing on the red area here, that's where we have that moderate risk for some of that flash flooding. So you got to be mindful of that, as historic flash flooding looks to be the story possible across parts of the northern Gulf Coast. So we just have to stay tuned here, continue to check in for updates. And we're just going to continue to give you that latest information. I know I'm giving you some different radar views. I'll punch up another one here. This is off our Tallahassee radar right now. You'll be able to see what is happening there. You'll be able to see the view here. And some of that moisture coming in. We're going to watch for some rotation here. Maybe an increasing tornado threat, especially as we get into word tomorrow. But a little bit here tonight. You see a little bit of a pattern here that would indicate some rotation, but nothing too extreme right now. Nothing that's worthy of a tornado warning at the present time. But we'll continue to watch. We'll continue to track here, and give you that latest information as the evening does move along. And speaking of coverage, I will break in as necessary, of course, anything in our area, but then with that landfall taking place off toward the west as well, we'll be giving you that latest information on that too. I know I'm kind of losing my voice a little bit, but hopefully my voice kind of comes back as the evening does move along, as we have so much to talk about as we look in toward that Wednesday morning. Wednesday afternoon, we're going to be so busy with this area. You kind of see the pink here on the map. Maybe indicating some areas getting toward 20 inches in a widespread fashion there in toward that southern Alabama area, talking about that Mobile, Baldwin County region. Just got to be watching even and over toward areas like Escambia too. A storm surge threat a little bit less than what we were tracking yesterday. Some good news, at least here. The wind's not quite as strong, and we'll just watch to see maybe 4 to 6 feet as we get toward the Dauphin Island area, extended over toward that Alabama-Florida border, also the Mobile Bay region, and then in our region here, 1 to 3 feet still. We've already kind of seen some of this, but Beecher Rose and dangerous rift currents, so some flooding here are our biggest concerns with this. The coastal flooded bays in effect. And then in terms of those peak wind gusts, we want to talk about this now because we have some pretty high numbers on the board, as this could cause some issues, widespread power outages. So you want to charge up your devices, especially if you're in that Mobile, Pensacola area. But we still have areas of Port Panama City even getting some pretty high winds, Tallahassee as well. So just got to be mindful here. And you see Gulfport, they're closer to that storm, but the eastern side here a little more favorable for some of this, and that's why we're watching toward Tallahassee even with some of these winds. New Orleans doesn't look like too big of a deal. 45 might even be a little bit generous here at this point, but still 74 to 95 mile per hour winds on that Saffir-Simpson scale. That does mean some damage, a possibility, and is likely to occur here. Already seeing some of that being reported, in fact. And another thing we have to watch as we get into toward your Wednesday, more shear increases that risk of tornadoes as the storm kind of breaks down some. We'll have to watch here for some tornadic activity. Apalachicola, even over toward Tallahassee, and our viewing circle under a slight risk. You see a marginal risk off toward the east, but a slight risk here. Tallahassee, off toward Apalachicola, Panama City, getting over maybe toward Crestview even. So just pay attention, Southwest Georgia in there as well, and that elevated tornado threat. I just wanted to highlight here, this is more of something I put together, the environment, the more favorability here. The tornadoes on that eastern side, so it's kind of odd because that storm making landfall and you see it on the southern side here of the track, but we're just going to have to watch because that's actually the eastern side of Sally, and that's where we're going to see some tornadic accident getting going here. So gotta watch in toward the Wiregrass, in toward Southwest Georgia, South Central Georgia, but also first off here in toward the Florida Panhandle. We're talking about areas Pensacola, Panama City, Tallahassee. And then Ivan, another thing I wanted to run down real quick, we could have a landfalling hurricane tomorrow morning into toward Alabama, just like we did 16 years ago, which was the last landfalling hurricane in the state. And ironically, there was some odd curvature pattern to that one as well, but it was much stronger, that pressure much lower, and much more impactful storm in terms of those winds and storm surge at least than this one will be. But this one could end up having more rain as we kind of run down, so just got to pay attention to that as we're in that peak of hurricane season. Now, those storm names, we're still watching some other storms out there. More storms still a possibility, and what could be a record-breaking season. And that means the Greek alphabet could have to be used, so just kind of stay tuned there with that. And then the European model, we're going to be watching here. I know there's some model uncertainty, but now starting to get some indications of another system developing as we look toward Brownsville later next week. Could be a little while, getting not far from the Bay of Campeche as well. So just stay tuned. Gotta watch to see how things do occur there, as we have to just pay attention this time of year. A very, very busy hurricane season. The story, still looking here at some more different things. That watch here, let's go ahead and see what that does entail. It looks like we're at 7 o'clock now Eastern, so that new watch should be on the screen here at this point. We're talking about 6 a.m. Central Time, so just got to watch for those conditions being favorable for tornadic activity ending close to this watch area, this yellow region here. Some isolated tornadoes definitely a possibility, and we're going to watch those wind speeds increase as well as our storm Hurricane Sally does get closer. Let's go ahead and see a radar scope for that eye now. I want to give you some perspective on that as we do switch you over there. You can see the eye, it's really well defined, and that's something to take note of, that eye wall becoming more important here. That's going to bring some big time impacts with it. Some of those stronger winds knocking out more power, so the center of the eye getting toward the coast. We're about 50 miles or so away, and this is moving pretty slow, but it's going to accelerate here a little bit, not much, don't get me wrong. It's not going to just start picking up speed too much, but we got to watch, we got to track it here in the Weather Center, and we'll give you that latest information as conditions do warrant. So I'll come back on the camera here as we start to wrap it up. I think I'll pop something else up here too, just so you know what's happening. Again, watching that tornado watching it tomorrow morning now, just issued by the Storm Prediction Center. And power outage is starting to go up some in Alabama. We're starting to see these values according to poweroutage.us inching up here into toward the picture. So let's go ahead and see that right here now. You'll be able to see as we look toward Alabama, nearly 20,000 customers in the dark. So just got to pay attention here. You see areas like in toward Escambia County, Alabama a little bit, but Baldwin County, Mobile County, that's where you're starting to see the numbers mount a little bit more. And even in toward the Florida Panhandle, we have a few customers here as well. As we get over toward Escambia County, Florida, nearly 5,000 in the dark. So just kind of stay tuned there with that. I'll give you the updates here in this area. But for now, I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there, of course. As necessary, I'll be breaking in here on the necessary platforms.